Buckingham Palace asked to produce list of treasures that are expected to be found during refit. Buckingham Palace staff have been asked to produce a list of important historic remains that workers are expected to find under the building's floorboards during a 10-year £369 million refit. The extensive archaeological work is set to take place across the west and east wings of the palace, the side which faces the mall, according to a source who works at the site. The bulk of these wings were designed by Regency architect John Nash and date from the 1820s, but they are thought to include elements of the earlier 18th century Buckingham House, as well as remains of earlier 17th century buildings. It is expected that the refurbishment will unearth items of historic archaeological importance, and experts at Historic England are closely involved in the planning of the works. In January, they told the royal household to produce a written scheme of archaeological investigation after Westminster City Council noted in planning documents that the palace is a building of international significance, largely dating from the 1820s. Now they also want to see a written scheme of investigations which will detail what is currently known about the building and its hidden archaeological treasures. Council Case Officer Andrew Barber said in archaeological terms, the works are likely to encounter buried archaeology which is likely to be harmed as a result of the excavation of future footings. The Historic England archaeologist has confirmed their satisfaction with the current submission, but wishes to see a WC produced and implemented through a two-stage condition. The site incorporates remains from the earlier Buckingham House 18th century, with older remains also likely of earlier 17th century houses and buried archaeology. The royal residence is currently undergoing its biggest refurbishment since the Second World War, which will renew the building's 33-year-old boilers, 100 miles of 60-year-old electrical cable and 20 miles of lead and cast iron pipework. The extent of the renovation was given as the reason for Donald Trump not being able to stay in the palace when he makes a state visit in June. A source at the palace said the palace has a lot of hidden secrets and these works may uncover something which may help to further establish the history of what Buckingham Palace used to be like, which the Queen does have interest in. Buckingham House was built by the Duke of Buckingham in 1703 before being acquired by King George III in 1761. The works come after the royal household had plans approved for works to restore the palace terraces in the west and north wings of the palace after showing signs of decay. Planning documents say the terraces are integral to the design of the palace as the transition between palace and gardens. The West Terrace is part of John Nash's original design for the West Wing and is one of the key components of the garden front of the palace. Both terraces feature codestone vases and urns dating from the 1820s or 1860s and which are the subject of this application, along with the bottle balusters to both terraces which are also made of codestone. All have been overpainted many times over the past 100 years, now being several millimeters thick and losing much of the fine detail of the original decorations. This paint is also, more importantly, trapping moisture, causing decay of the underlying historic fabric and detail. The application proposes to remove all paint layers using a variety of techniques, and to then restore the original codestone underneath for re-exposure. A Buckingham Palace spokesperson said the royal household has been working closely with both Historic England and Westminster City Council to ensure best archaeological practice is adopted throughout the resurfacing program to protect the heritage of the building. There are no delays. John Nash, remembered for his work on Buckingham Palace, Regent's Park, and Regent Street in London, is one of the most famous architects of the 18th and early 19th centuries. He was born in January 1752 and after an early education received training from the architect Sir Robert Taylor. After early education, Nash was trained by the architect Sir Robert Taylor and worked as a surveyor and builder in the City of London. In 1777 Nash established his own business and later inherited £1,000 from an uncle, which he decided to risk on the building of houses in Great Russell Street and Bloomsbury Square. The buildings failed. Returning to London in 1797, Nash then designed a number of Gothic castles around the country, in places such as Luscombe Castle in Devon and Caerhais Castle in Cornwall. Nash soon came under the patronage of the Prince Regent, later King George IV. In 1806, by 1813, he had been appointed official architect to the Office of Works, which meant advising parliamentary commissions on things such as new church buildings. This was when he also created what is now Trafalgar Square and redesigned the Royal Pavilion in Brighton. When George IV died in 1830, Nash lost his royal protector amid a backlash about the extravagance of the king's reign. Buckingham Palace had cost thousands, millions in today's terms, and Nash ultimately retired. He died a few years. Dog sitters tell owner her pet died during 3-day stay at their kennels, and hens a dead. Driver, 23, who spent £3,000 lowering his suspension to look fresh, now has to drive extra £600. Man who removed condom during sex with prostitute despite her objections is jailed for 12 years for. Nicola Sturgeon calls for a second referendum on Scottish independence by 2021 to give residents a. Milkman, 65, writes letter of apology to his customers telling them he is quitting his round after. The Wimbledon prowler unmasked married chip shop owner pleads guilty to 21 burglaries on. Exclusive first pictures of middle-class suicide bomber brothers who calmly walked into Sri. Woman, 21, who lost her temper and slapped a 1-year-old girl with adult force, leaving a large. Legendary Dallas star Ken Kercheval, who played Junior Ewing's nemesis Cliff Barnes, dies aged 83. Buckingham Palace asked to produce list of historic treasures that builders are expected to find. Was Sri Lanka suicide bomber radicalized in Britain? Authorities named. Exclusive. Meet the woman Johnny Depp plans to marry a 20-something Russian go-go dancer who was Jeremy Corbyn's brother. Brands 16-year-old climate activist Greta Thunberg an ignorant brainwashed NHS nurse, 50, who staged a road accident and faked her injuries to claim compensation in £750,000. Why in God's name does it take the death of a 29-year-old woman? Mourners give priest. Notre Dame contractor admits scaffolders flouted a smoking ban while renovating the cathedral but
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.